Did you know that college coaches look at more than just your stats? Academics are just as important as your batting average. In fact, your grades and GPA could be the game changer that sets you apart. My name is Evan Mendoza, and I have 7 years of professional baseball experience between the St. Louis Cardinals and San Diego Padres. I also studied aerospace engineering while I was playing D1 baseball in the ACC. Stick around because at the end of this video, I'm going to share over a resource that could really separate your player both academically and athletically. Let's dive in on how your player can be the best player both on the field and off. So first things first, I really want to talk about how academically you can open doors to more colleges, more universities. You can get more interest from these college coaches. And before I get into that, I really just want to set the tone on this 95-mile-an-hour story, all right? In high school, I went to Sarasota High School, a very well traditional high school that's known for their baseball program, right? So there was a lot of talent that would come through the doors, right? And I'll never forget, there was this, I think he was a sophomore. He was throwing 95 miles an hour as a sophomore. His freshman year, I believe he was throwing 90 miles an hour, right? He had all the potential literally in the world. But I'll never forget, this was actually my first year at Sarasota High School, too. So I was kind of in shock when I heard this. But this individual, and I can't make this up, had a 0.5 GPA. I kid you not. 0.5. That almost is like impossible to actually, you have to try to get a 0.5 GPA, right? So when I heard this, I was like, oh my goodness, how is this actually even possible? This guy has all the talent in the world. And I, of course, talking with some of my teammates, he tried out for the team. He ended up making the team, but he didn't actually pursue and actually be on the team. Started, talking with my peers. I said, hey, what's up with this guy? How, like, I heard he has like a 0.5 GPA. Yeah, it's true. And I was like, how? Well, supposedly he just never went to class. I guess he was never told that he had to go to class, so he never really understood that he needed to go to class. Shocking, right? But either way, I guess the idea of the story is that there's a disconnect, right? He threw 95 miles an hour. So in most people's eyes, that's enough to not only play at a D1 baseball program, but also on top of that, play professionally. So why isn't he playing professionally? Why isn't he at that D1 program? Well, it has to do with what he was getting it done, or I guess the lack of what he was getting done in the classroom. And this happens all the time. And to be honest with you, this isn't probably the only story like this. It's very unfortunate because there's obviously a ton of talent in that arm. He was a pitcher and was throwing very, very hard at such a young age. But obviously, I love to live with the idea of how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? And obviously, there's an unequal sign right there because if he's throwing 95 miles an hour, that's great. But more than likely, he doesn't have the discipline to keep that going. Is he going to be on a structured routine throughout his high school journey into college? Probably not. So instantly, these college coaches raise that red flag. Even our high school coaches were raising their red flag, and they didn't even really want him to be part of the team. So I always think that it's fun to talk baseball and the academic side of things because baseball is one of those really fun sports when we're talking about the analytical side of things, right? So the analytic in baseball, obviously now it's launch angle, exit velocity, all that type of stuff. But your batting average, your OPS, your OBP, your slug, all these are fun. Your K percentage, your walk percentage, your even contact rate. So for me, I'm a math and science guy. I studied aerospace engineering, as you heard earlier in this video. Obviously, I love all of these stats. And there was a point in time in my high school baseball career, I've made videos before, but I'm a geek when it comes to spreadsheets. So I would create like literally a spreadsheet document with, batting average, walks, strikeouts, singles, doubles, triples. I didn't hit any triples or home runs in high school really, but I calculated all of my batting average, and this is something that I did out of the pure enjoyment of understanding these stats to a deeper level. And I also had the understanding that what gets measured gets managed. And if I wanted to have a higher batting average, I needed to understand how to become a better hitter, obviously, but maybe my K rate was way too high, and that was alarming, right? I would have never known that if I didn't actually track this data. And to be honest with you guys, a lot of high school baseball coaches do not track this stuff and are not going to give it to you just for free. And I know there's game changers, this and that. There's obviously a ton of scorekeepers that give you really, really bad information. Everyone gets a base hit, basically. There are no errors in high school, right? We all know that one scorekeeper. Anyway, this is something that I urge you to have a notebook. If your parents can do this, while watching your games, that's great. But have a notebook that basically writes what you did in that game. RBIs, how many walks you have, and how many plate appearances have you had, how many at bats, what your batting average. You can calculate all this stuff inside of a spreadsheet. And it's kind of got my gears thinking. Maybe I'll create something like this for you guys. But getting back to the point, I'm a math guy, and I would assume that there's a lot of high school baseball players that are more tailored to math and science and less like reading and writing. I was never into reading and writing, but I just felt like there was like a correlation between these two, right? Analytics and math, I got it, right? And obviously the academic side of things, like it helped me understand the game. And I'll never forget, uh, even in geometry, right? In math, I felt like knowing angles, right? What that angle is, 70 degrees or whatever it was, knowing that, I think that helps me in the game because, like, let's say I'm a shortstop right here, the ball's coming this way. I need to know what angle to take to be able to cut that ball off and to be able to throw the ball over to first base, right? And if I took the wrong angle, and obviously this is the angle right there, maybe that's the ball passing by, but maybe I go this way too much and then the base runner gets to first base and then he's safe all of a sudden, right? Just because I took the wrong angle. And if you don't believe that there are angles in the game, you have been fed some bad information because there's angles everywhere as far as the angle of the pitch coming into the strike zone, the angle of your bat. Obviously now we know launch angle, everyone knows that. There are measurable stats and analytics that the more you can comprehend, which again, you need to have that baseline understanding of really not necessarily in math class, but really just taking your academics seriously because it will help translate and help you digest all the information in this game. All right. So next up, I really want to just talk about this concept, and it's not necessarily 100% foolproof, right? But it's the idea of your academic performance. Basically correlating to your athletic performance, right? So let's say your academic performance is right here. More than likely, your athletic performance is going to be right here, right? Not that high. Let's say that's like a JV level, right? And let's say this is like a 1.0 GPA, right? But let's say on the flip side right here, 4.0, we have that understanding of how we do one thing is how we're going to do everything. We take our academics seriously. We obviously understand that the academic side of things is our gateway into playing college baseball, and if we don't take that stuff seriously, we could be hindering our potential, right? We might be closing doors just because we don't have a good GPA. And I'm not going to say that you guys have to have a great GPA, but I'd say roughly 3.0 or higher makes these college coaches feel like they can trust you off of the field. Because once you get to college, you are a grown-up. You have to have the time management skills. You have to do your homework. You have to show up on time. Attendance is usually tracked, right? So you have to take care of everything away from the field as well. So again, if you're taking care of everything off of the field, more than likely your athletic performance is going to be up as well. This could be a D1 prospect. This could be, varsity. This could be all conference or whatever. You get the idea. So, if you're average, you might be average, right? So the idea of how we do one thing is how we do everything, right? So yes, we need to be structured in our baseball development, physically, mentally. We need to be on a workout program. We need to be, contacting college coaches in a structured way. All of this is to this area, right? But if you think that you can do all of this and have a 1.0 GPA and really understand what's going on, I just don't have a belief that is how that's going to work, right? Because if you're not taking care of it right here, more than likely you're not going to take care of it right here. There's going to be, again, a disconnect somewhere. And like I said in the story before, the 95-mile-an-hour story, there was a disconnect, and it was very, very true, right? So this kind of leads me into a little bit of my background at NC State, where obviously I had to learn these time management skills because I was doing aerospace engineering, right? So like typically 8 a.m. All the way up until like 1 p.m. were always classes, right? And then from like 2 to like 7, we had practice, right? And then like really 8 to 11 p.m., we had to do homework, study, social life. You try to balance that. Put more work in because if you just want to be average, you can 100% do what everyone else is doing, and you're probably going to develop just as fast as everyone else. So you can put more work in this extra time. You can also find some time like from 6 to 7:30 a.m. This is when you can get some extra work in. Maybe, a 30-minute hitting session right in between this section right here. This is when you can get extra work in. But ultimately, like, yeah, if we do land a college scholarship to play baseball, yes, we're there to play baseball. But also we have to understand that we have to be eligible to be able to play baseball. And this is honestly something that I had to face. I was taking very, very challenging classes, aerospace engineering. Typically in my classes, because I didn't have a ton of time outside of practice, I was doing things like homework, studying for other exams, and I wasn't necessarily where my feet were, right? I wasn't in class really understanding everything. And I'll actually never forget, in the middle of my season one time, I had an 8 a.m. engineering class. I think it was like fluid dynamics or something crazy, right? And I was watching game film because that's what I really had to focus on because it was in the middle of my season. I wanted to understand my swing, what was working, what wasn't. All the successes I was having and also all the failures that I was having. I needed some time to be able to analyze or give myself a self-analysis on what was going on. Because again, like you have to be your own coach in this game. And if I relied on simply my hitting coaches at NC State to present me this whole, presentation on how my swing looks, and no, you have to watch your own film if you truly care about your development and if you truly care about leveling up and having that growth mindset, right? So having that time management, yes, I didn't do everything perfectly to a T. I will admit that, right? I was doing things that I wasn't supposed to be in that class, but that was me knowing that I had to manage my time in a way to be able to get the stuff done, and then also to be able to make sure that I don't burn out, right? Obviously, I have to study, do homework, I have to do practice, I have class, I have homework, and in class, there's a lot of stuff going on. But the thing that I really sacrificed a lot, guys, is my social life. I barely went to any parties in college, maybe a handful in my 3 years, right? I rarely went to parties. And that's because I had a lot on my plate. And I also understood that I wasn't going to college simply for partying. And if you go to college and you go and select maybe let's say like a Florida State or an Alabama simply because they have a little bit more parties, they're known as a party school, and that's something that attracts you, just be careful. That's all I'm going to say because a lot of people love this area. Love this area. They really do love that area too much where they lose sight of why they are there in the first place. All right. So having that time management skills is very important. And the last thing that we're going to go over right now is the bases of success. All right. So obviously, we have a beautiful diamond right here that I hand drew earlier. And first step is really making sure that we have that academic excellence. So having that excellence of what we're doing in the classroom, obviously that will help us translate our dedication, our discipline, our motivation into the sport because we understand that that is a part of what we need to do as a baseball player to be able to play at the next level. And there are sacrifices that are associated to that, but obviously those sacrifices are well worth it if you're trying to play at the next level, right? If you're in college, you understand that the social life is going to be a sacrifice. But guess what? I would sacrifice a social life in college 1,000,000 times out of 1,000,000 to be able to get drafted in the MLB draft, play alongside guys like Albert Pujols, Yachty, Arenado, Goldschmidt. I got traded over to the Padres playing alongside guys like Tatis and Machado. Xander Bogaerts, we turned a sick double play in spring training once. So I would a million times out of a million times sacrifice all that partying that a lot of my teammates were doing in college for the experiences and for the journey to continue, really, because it's all about what you're doing and willing to do today to be able to get the results for tomorrow, right? And there's a lot of people that aren't willing to sacrifice much, right? So second base, this is obviously the athletic side of things, and this is like skill, right? Obviously, we need the skill to be able to land a scholarship to play D1 baseball. Don't get me wrong. So this is where we need to understand, like, we have to physically develop in the gym. We have to be doing sprint programs. We have to make sure that we're athletes at the end of the day. These college coaches need athletes, and you're required to become an athlete at the higher levels. And it's not really become an athlete. They expect you to be an athlete already at those higher levels. So step number 3 is that discipline and work ethic. So these are the areas where we can refine what we're doing to be able to make it that much better. And think about it this way. Let's say you're at 99% capacity. You want that 100%. You want that tiny little 1%, because that 1% is going to truly make you better. And I think I remember watching a Netflix series about golfers. I think it was Full Swing. Maybe you guys have watched it already. But I think it was talking about one of the golfers. I don't remember the exact name of the golfer, but he went into a personal trainer. I think it was actually close to where I live, up in Jupiter, Florida. And he told the trainer, hey, I just want you to make me 0.1% better. Because at the highest level, guys, and I think this is something that you can't really visualize until you've gone through the process, when you're competing against some of the best athletes on the planet every single day, that 0.1% is enough of a separator to make it to that next level. Whatever that next level he was trying to make. Maybe it's shooting, one extra stroke, right? These things have huge impacts at the highest levels. But the thing is, to separate yourself in high school, it really doesn't take that much extra hard work, right? It's a 15 minutes a day doing a sprinting program, and you will see the results that you're looking for, because a lot of high school baseball players, I think it's like 93% of high school baseball players, will not ever play in college because they're not willing to sacrifice 15 minutes a day. That's crazy, right? So having that work ethic, having that discipline, that's ultimately going to help us reach those dreams and goals that we're striving for, right? So home plate, this is where we're going to find success in college and beyond, right? A little Buzz Lightyear. All right, so obviously having the mix of all three, that's when we're going to be able to excel at the next level and just continuously push ourselves, not only on the field, but away from the field as well in the classroom. If your player is ready to get recruited both athletically and for baseball, book a call down below to learn about how the triple play could be a good fit for your player.